I think Jim just joined in. I don't know.
Does it say pause? Okay, now it's recording.
There you go.
No, I don't know why it paused. All right, now we're in biz. All right, so let me just write down RD, Jake, Peter, K, Brian. What did I put Brian C for? Should be Brian H. There we go. Dennis. Oh, Dr. George is with us. Dennis, Dr. George, Jim Harrington, okay. So I'll just read out the names that I see here. I think I've got everybody. And we'll get started. Jake. Ooh, we're getting some feedback from someone. I don't know who. Jake, Peter Kafka, Brian, Dennis, Dr. George, Jim Harrington, and then I think somebody who might be new says Shref. Have you ever joined us before?
No, sir.
Well, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And what's your first name?
Scott.
Scott. Well, welcome, Scott.
My last Schreffler, so I just go by Schreff.
Oh, you just go by Shref? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine by me. We'll call you Shref. So the way that we usually work here is that if we do have somebody new, we ask if you would like to take some time to tell us a little bit about your diagnosis, your background, where you live, where you're being treated, how old you are, what you've done to date, and what issues might be facing you. And we'll spend the first 20 minutes or half an hour or so talking about your situation, if you're comfortable doing so. If not, hang in, and we'll come back to you later.
However you want to go.
Well, if you're good to go, we're good to listen.
Okay, well, thanks for listening. My name's Scott Schreffler. I was diagnosed with a biopsy October 21st of last year. I had a 9 Gleason and a 5 group. I can't remember what that was. And then November 21st, I had a bone scan and a MRI, and my cancer had metastasized to my pelvic bones. And since then, I've, December, I guess I got put on Lutron. Is it Lutron?
Lupron.
Yeah, Lutron with a pellet in my hip or buttock, and Zytiga and prednisone.
Mm-hmm.
And just been trying to sort everything out since then. I'm sort of still getting a paycheck from a small business I own. I haven't really been working too much, and that's been going on since last summer before I was actually diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my biggest problem is extreme fatigue and mental fog, and
right. Right. We've heard it before, but we may have some help for you and some ideas and solutions, because we've got some warriors on this call who have tread the path before you. and have some experience. How old are you, Shref?
65.
65. And where do you live?
Oil City, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And where are you getting treated?
Oh, I'm sorry. Cleveland Clinic.
Okay. And Cleveland Clinic, where? In Cleveland or
Cleveland.
in one of the
Yes.
satellites?
No, Cleveland.
In Cleveland. How are you finding that? Because I recently had somebody that was very upset with them, felt that they didn't get good treatment, but so much of it is each person. So are you satisfied? Are you happy with them or not?
So far, it's yeah, it's.
Good,
Uh,
good.
I think I think they're doing what the protocols
Okay.
sort of.
And what made you choose to go to Cleveland Clinic?
Well, we actually live out in the country. There's no local
Right,
big facility,
right,
and so either Pittsburgh or Cleveland,
right.
and Cleveland's actually easier for me to get to and navigate than Pittsburgh.
Okay. And your doctor, who's your doctor there?
Presently, it's let me look. His name is Moshe, Moshe Ornstein, Orstein.
Right, Orenstein. And is he a medical oncologist? What's his specialty?
I guess a urologic oncology program. That's what his card said, whatever that is.
Is he a surgeon or is he
No, the surgeon referred me to him.
oh, the surgeon referred you to him. Okay. So most likely he's a medical oncologist.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and to go back to these to metastasis, how many spots were there how many lesions did they see in the pelvic area?
Just one lesion on the inner left pelvic.
That's good news. That's good news. And what about your PSA? You haven't mentioned your PSA. What's that? Where was it before you were diagnosed, and where is it now?
I think it was 28 was the high, and now it's down to 0.55.
Okay. And how long have you? And let's see. You've been on Lupron and Zytiga since when?
December 21st, I think.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, that's a good, I'm sure we might think of some other things, but let's focus in a little bit on some of these side effects. I'm gonna turn this over to a couple of the guys, and when I do that, I'm gonna post for you a pamphlet that was produced by UCSF on hormone therapy, which you might find pretty helpful because it'll address the side effects that you can expect. And most doctors and clinics don't do a very good job preparing you. And this was the reason we put this pamphlet together by one of the best groups in the country. And so I'll put that link in the box for you in a minute. But I want to, I mean, this diagnosis is similar to a couple of people on the call. I think maybe kick off with Dennis. It sounds a bit like your situation, doesn't it, Dennis?
Yeah, that's I started a little later. I've got about 8 years on you. But my initial diagnosis a couple years back was a 9 Gleason. But I had a lot more Mets than you. I believe it was mets in my lumbar, spine, femur, and a number of all the pelvic lymph nodes were involved. And because at the time of my diagnosis, it was they were looking at docetaxel and Firmagon, which started out and then moved on to Lupron. But I think from what I'm hearing, you probably have a fairly good prognosis with that low number of mets, and a very good overall survival time you should be expecting following this drug regimen that they got you on, which is what I'm doing now. I'm now on Zytiga, 1,000 milligrams a day with the prednisone, 2.5 milligrams twice a day, and my Lupron injections I get every 3 months, which is where I'm headed tomorrow. Get one of those. Side effects of fatigue starts to set in after a while, and I find for that the best thing is exercise. Believe it or not, I mean and I'll tell you, I am not a real consistent exerciser. It's kind of like I start to get really fatigued and feeling like all I want to do is take a nap or something. I got to go for a walk and do something. So I'm kind of on and off of it, but I definitely notice the difference. I do play golf a couple times a week, so that's about the only steady exercise that I get. But try that. There's a number of programs out there. Rick can probably clue you in on those and where to go to get that specific information on different exercise programs. But it's primarily some cardio with some resistant exercises. The mental fog is a tough one to work at. I find I have to keep finding something new to try to learn. And that's, in individuals, it's up to you on find something interesting new that you have never done before. Try to learn it, whether it be a new language or something like that. But also your PSA has responded very well with I think with a 0.55. They're saying something like I think it's a 0.7 if you have less than a 0.7 after your first several months or something of the Zytiga. You have a really good prognosis for survivability, overall survivability. But that's pretty much my experience. I don't know, you got any other specific questions?
No, I not at this point. I don't know what to ask.
So, someone else like to speak to Shreff?
Yeah, Shreff, this is Peter. I'm behind you. I just had some tests done to see got some biochemical recurrence going on, but when I was diagnosed 4 years ago, I was not metastatic, but I am a Gleason 9. And I've gone through surgery, I've gone through radiation, and gone through hormone treatment like you're on. I have not done Zytiga though. So one question I have, I looked up, your medical oncologist does specialize in genitourinary cancer, does specialize in prostate cancer. He's a graduate of Columbia. So he seems like a pretty good, knowledgeable young guy that seems to be on the right track. That's the guy you want to have on your team, no doubt. Did he talk to you at all about stereotactic radiation at all to hit, if it's only one spot on your pelvis, to hit that at some point? It might be too early to do that right now because of your you just started the Zytiga, but I'm just wondering if he talked to you about that.
Now the only options he talked about was the 3 drugs.
Right. You might want to make a note of that and ask if you need to consult a radiation oncologist there at Cleveland or not, because oftentimes if you have less than 5 spots showing up, a lot of times they will try to treat that with radiation.
I'll keep that in the back of my head.
So that's not an alternative, it's a supplement. It's in addition to what you're already doing. And there is slight possibility, and it's really slight, that it could result in a permanent remission. Usually it doesn't, but I think it does retard the disease. And there are a number of guys, I think on this call, and certainly who talk to us on a regular basis and attend these groups, that have done have radiated these spots. It's now they tend to do it with stereotactic body radiation because it's more accurate, but in the past it's also just been done with regular IMRT that they can focus as well. It doesn't have to be, but it's just basically the idea of radiating metastasis. If you want to look at that yourself, it's a treatment for what is called oligometastatic disease, meaning, as Peter correctly said, disease where we're aware that the disease is metastasized, but it's less than 5 spots. Who else would like to talk to Shref? Anyone else? No? Well, as Dennis correctly said, I mean, no one wants to get diagnosed with metastasized disease, but the state of your metastasis is as good as it gets, really, for metastasized disease. And as you heard Dennis say, he's been dealing with this for many years, and there's no reason to think that you couldn't either. There are some things that you need to do on your part. Exercise is really important, as you heard Dennis say, and there are other guys on the call who will testify to the importance of exercise, and it really does help you with the fatigue. What are you exercising at all right now?
No, not really.
Okay. So it's very it's important that you get a regime that mixes both aerobic and weight resistance. There's a weight resistance plan, I think, that Dennis was referring to. He was part of it at one time, and I can send you later on the information on it. It's called the MAN Plan. It's actually sponsored by the people that make Lupron, AbbVie. And it's a home exercise plan using bands, using rubber bands, elasticated bands. And that's one way to go. But you need to mix that with good walking. Jim Harrington, you're very silent tonight, and you're always telling us how the exercise helps you, and you've been on these drugs for a long time, and somehow or other you managed to continue your professorial duties in spite of all these drugs.
Yeah, that's true, Rick. Yes, I found that in the early stages of chemo, and I've had about 5 months of chemo. It's just continuous. Actually, I have a 2-week break right now, but the chemo does hold my PSA steady, and it's true. I found in the early stages of chemo, I've also taken Xtandi and Zytiga, I've had all kinds of things, that I had fatigue. So just addressing fatigue, for whatever the reason, it's rough. And so I would lie down on the sofa and so forth. Finally, I said, I'm still fully employed at Rutgers University, and I teach. And I said, you got to get up. Just don't lie down here. Get your fanny off that sofa and go to work. And I go to work every day. Now, maybe I stay 10 to 4. But I go in, I see my students, and you're right, Rick, and you just have to do it. And as far as the exercise goes, absolutely. I have some weights. I have my weights in my basement, And yeah, I don't lift what I used to lift, but I do it, and it's harder when you have fatigue. You've got to, but once you get started in some kind of an exercise program, get gym or something like walking or get going, you're okay. You just got to get up and go do it. But that's quite right, Rick. I find that, you really have to just keep going. And I find that even though I've been on docetaxel for a long time, I wish it weren't quite so long, but it is working, that the only, because a lot of men really suffer from this particular chemo, but a secret is to really exercise and don't let these side effects dictate your life, and you're fighting cancer, of course, but you just gotta exercise, do something else, just keep involved, and don't lie down so much.
Now,
something like that.
You're on Lupron, and
yeah, I'm Lupron, Zytiga for my bones and so forth. Regularly, yeah, I've been on Lupron for a number of years, and I will say though, Jeff, that I'm one of these people. Rick will tell you that there are people like me who don't suffer much from Lupron. In fact, I don't get anything from Lupron. I don't get any hot flashes. I don't get warm flashes. But that's good for me. What happens. Some really just have a problem with this stuff. But they just keep giving me Lupron, and yeah, I take it.
Ref, this is Peter again. Did your doctor talk to you about some of the side effects that are coming down the road with Lupron and Zytiga, or give you literature to read to gain an understanding of possibilities?
No, not really, but I got all the, the insert sheets from the.
Okay. You might. There's some good books and literature around, and if you look on our website, you'll probably find something too. But you might want to read up on it. Are you married, or do you have a partner? Huh?
Yes, I'm married.
Okay, you want to make sure your wife understands this stuff too, because it will affect her and your relationship, and you need to pay attention to that. Don't let it suddenly, because you only started in December, so the full effects aren't going to come on for another couple of months probably. But it's going to do a number on your libido. It's going to knock you around considerably, and you want to make sure you understand what's going on as well as your wife. So I would if you want to somehow give us your address or something, we can.
I have it. I have it, Peter.
Yeah, we might be able to send you a copy of a great book that Dr. Moyad puts out that gives you a lot of information about hormone therapy and what to expect and what can happen and how to deal with it.
Well, what I would like you to do, if you would, is to look at I posted a live link in the chat window, and you can certainly download that, Shref, and that would be a really good start. And there are some tips in there. I think it's been updated as well. Originally, I was involved in drafting it, so I knew what was in it. I think it's been updated since then, but you'll find that link in the chat window very, very helpful. I want to, I want to go back to a couple of little things. One is, or not so little, one is this mental fog. And I think Dennis, again, was right on the money. It's really important to challenge your brain and your memory every day. I mean, I was on Lupron for 2.5 years, and I made it a point of playing. I used to play bridge online, but you can do Sudoku, you can do crossword puzzles. It doesn't really matter what you do. I mean, Dennis's suggestion to learn a language is great because it's forcing you to remember vocabulary. Whatever you do, stretching your memory on a daily basis is going to minimize the impact of the brain fog. The other thing is, if you're feeling depressed, then there's reason to believe that could well be attributable to a change in your brain chemicals. I mean, that it's controversial, but many doctors will agree that when you don't produce testosterone, your brain chemistry does change. And so if you're not already on an antidepressant, then there's good reason to use it, because all it's doing is it's restoring the chemicals that you're no longer making, and you'll feel so much better for it. Plus, the exercise will help you immensely in helping to restore that balance. So, I mean, those are two good tips. Another thing to consider is your diet. And I don't know if you visited our website, ancan.org. Maybe somebody, Jake or somebody, can put ancan.org in the chat box for you. But we have a really good lecture that was given to us earlier this year by a dietitian from UCSF. And there are links on that page to a couple of excellent pamphlets on nutrition. But nutrition is important. It isn't going to cure you, but it's a very important complementary aspect. So, you know, those are just a few thoughts. I don't know. Would anybody like to speak to the depression aspect of being on an LHRH drug?
Rick, this is Peter again. I take Wellbutrin for it, which is a very low level antidepressant. It's not. I mean, I think the Lupron, the ADT does enhance it, but just the whole trip around having cancer, it just is a lot to think about, and it's overwhelming sometimes. So it does, you know, an antidepressant does take the edge off of things and help you keep a little more upbeat and able to process the whole journey.
So we don't want to overload you with all these tips, but I can say a couple of things here. One is that keep coming back to us. We'll put you. I have your email. It was associated with your name on the on GoToMeeting, so I have your email, and we'll put you on the distribution list. So every week you'll get a reminder about our calls, usually with some other information, and just keep coming back and use us to support you. The other thing you should know are that we have 2 other calls that may well be of interest to you. We have a call, well, not for you, but for your wife. We have an advanced caregivers call. So if your wife is wrestling with this diagnosis as well, we have a group that would support her. And that information is on our website. When it meets, you join exactly the same way. And then we have a call called the Inner Conversation, which I'll let Jake talk to you about, because it may be something that you might be interested in participating in. Jake, you want to give Shref a quick heads up on your Inner Conversation call?
Sure. Hi, Shref. Sorry to hear you're one of the Brotherhood. We're all in it together, unfortunately. Every Wednesday.
I was a 1%er, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, the wrong kind of 1%. You know, I'd rather be the 1% that has all the money. Yeah, every Wednesday we have what's called an Inner Conversations meeting. It's the same number you used to call in here tonight.
You want?
But it's at 8 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. Every other week we have an all cancer meeting, but so far that's been all prostate cancer. Anyway, and then the other 2 weeks we have specifically prostate cancer. So, and what we do is we don't talk about technical stuff because I'm the moderator and I don't know that much technical information like some of the other gents on the phone call here. And what we do is we all kind of talk, and we talk, and we kid around, but we address the emotional aspects of having prostate cancer. The depression, the sadness, the anger, the mood swings. We don't always have answers, but other people can share their experiences and how they try to deal with it. And we generally end up kidding around a lot, and most of us end up feeling better when the meeting's over than when we got there. So I'd like to invite you every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, the same number you used to dial in here. Hope to see you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll pass your email on to Jake, and he'll get you on their advance notice. So
send it to Jet, Rick, because he doesn't like me sending out notices.
No. What I was going to do was just send it to you on the chat window right now to make it easy for me, and you can forward it to him. Do you mind?
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
yep.
I'll just send it to you, and so you can send it along. If unless anybody else would like to say anything, we'll do a roll call and see who else would like to speak tonight. Any last call to talk to Shref? And Shref, any questions for us? Almost forgot to check back in with you. Anything you'd like to ask before we move on?
No, I think you covered pretty much everything.
Okay. Well, we're here, and we're here to support you, and we hope you keep coming back, and we hope that 3 or 4 months from now you'll be in a very different place in terms of your head and your disease, and so we'll be around. Okay, so I see that Eric joined us and Paul Frieda joined us. So I'm just going to run down the list one more time and just make sure I haven't missed anybody. We've got Jake, we've got Peter, we've got Brian H, we've got Dennis, we've got Dr. George, Jim Harrington, we've got Shref, Eric Bookbinder, and Paul Frieda. Have I missed anybody? Okay. So let me start at the top and go down and see who'd like some time today. We should have plenty of time. We've got an hour and a half. I've got a couple of news items that I want to bring up at some point, but we'll move down. I'm just making notes to myself about my news items. Otherwise, when I come to them, I'll forget. Okay, Jake, would you like to talk?
No, I don't really have anything tonight, Rick. I haven't gotten my blood test results from my last visit with my oncologist.
All right.
Both my wife went out to the store, and hopefully it'll be in the mailbox when she comes back, and I can mention it when she does. But otherwise, I don't have anything.
Okay. Paul, can you mute for us for a second, because we're getting your background, and then I'll be coming to you, see if you need time.
Before you go on, Rick, Shref, what's your full name again?
Scott Schreffler.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Jake. I should have put that in that little note to you. Okay. Peter, I know you need some time.
Okay.
I'm putting you in.
Okay.
Okay. Brian, would you like to raise anything today? Maybe the issues that you spoke to me about, or you wrote to me about.
Yeah, I can talk about that briefly. I'll have an update on my situation. So
Great. Excellent. Dennis, would you like some time?
Couple minutes.
You got it. Dr. George, welcome back. We haven't seen you for a month or so.
Yeah, how you guys doing?
We're doing good, and the crew are moving on really well with this clinical trials project as well. So be in touch with them. Would you like some time?
Yeah, maybe a few minutes.
Okay. Jim Harrington, how about for you?
No, I'm fine tonight, Rick. Things are just going along same, and I'll just listen.
Okay. Eric, would you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'd like a few minutes.
You can have a few minutes. Where are you? Are you at home or are you away?
No, I'm at home.
Oh, okay.
Just different place than I usually am.
Yeah, I can see.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul, would you like any time?
I don't think so, no. I'm okay.
Okay. All right. So let's kick off with Peter. And maybe Peter we'll bring in that other scan that Len wanted us to mention to everybody when you're done, because it sort of segues right in. So go ahead.
Okay. I'm not at home in Maui. I'm sitting in a hotel room in San Francisco. I came over for a scan over here, a Gallium 68 PSMA PET CT scan, which I had yesterday morning. As every time I've been here, whether through surgery or IMRT or genetic testing or whatever, every time I've come here, I am nothing but impressed by the staff, the efficiency, the courteousness, the way they care for you here at UCSF. It's amazing. You know, whenever I hear someone complaining about a facility being too large and too unprofessional or bad experiences, I just think back on my experience here, which I've never had a problem with. So I had a scan yesterday, and it was very efficiently done. I didn't have to wait for anything except the drugs to get into my system and so forth. I left with a CD of it. I tried putting it in my computer, but I don't have the program that lets me even look at it, so that got me nowhere. But tomorrow I should be able to get the written report. I've got a follow-up meeting with Dr. Carroll, who did my surgery 3 years ago here, and go through the what he sees on it. And then I'm going to go down south and meet with my oncologist to come up with a game plan. So the reason I did this scan was because it can pick up very low-level activity, and I've got activity at a very low level, below 1 of my PSA, and yet this scan can pick it up at about 85–90% at that level, accurately telling me if there's activity in my lymph nodes or on my spine or you know where things are starting to show in terms of cellular activity. So that's why I'm here, and I'm glad I did it. I did it. It's a trial because it's not FDA approved, but it seems like standing room only for this test. I mean, I asked about it at Stanford. I asked about it at Hopkins, where it's also on trial at several other places, and they seem to be just lined up for it. Even here at UCSF, there's no gap in the line. People just come in one after the other for this scan. So it's gaining in popularity, and I'm sure it will be FDA approved before long. So that's all I have to report right now. I'll know more next week for sure.
Yeah, well, Peter, you didn't tell him that you're standing by the check-in desk with your answer cancer cards, chatting everybody up and giving them a card, did you?
Right. No, I didn't say that.
Peter, which scan did you get exactly?
I got the Gallium 68, the GA68 PSMA PET CT.
Go over that again slowly. Gallium 68.
PSMA,
Right, got that.
PET, CT.
Okay, got it.
So what that means is that every place won't have this because you have to have a cyclotron on site to manufacture this stuff just before they inject it into you. 68 means it's got 68-minute half-life. So in 68 minutes, half of it's dissipated. So they inject you with this stuff, and you wait an hour. So when they inject it into you, it takes an hour for it to get all through your bloodstream and into your body, and so forth, and attached to any place where you have cancer cells showing. It finds them. So then they've got to move pretty fast because they only have another hour in which to scan you. And the scan takes about 35 minutes. So it's a pretty quick operation. And the scanning device is a combination PET scan and CT scan. Does it all at once.
You said your PSA is 1, around 1?
Yeah, it's below 1. It's about 3 weeks ago it was 0.77. They
Okay,
like
so you're in Lupron failure? Lupron failure? You're in Lupron failure?
No, I'm not a Lupron failure. I'm a Lupron holiday. I quit. I quit Lupron in December of 16. Was the end of my time, and I went on a holiday, and I've not gone back on it. But my PSA is doubling right now, every 2 months at a low level, and that was the signal that something's going on. And I'm sure I will start on Zytiga or something. You know, I'll know more by the end of the week or Monday what treatment I'm going to start on. But I suspect it'll be a second-line anti-androgen.
Well, why don't you go back on Lupron if you voluntarily went off it in December of, more than a year ago? Why don't you go back on Lupron to see if it'll work?
I think I will go back on Lupron anyway, but I think my oncologist will probably recommend Zytiga or another drug as well. I'm just guessing right now, but I'll let you know next week.
Okay. When was your prostatectomy?
3 years ago, February of 15.
Okay.
And I had IMRT radiation finished in March of 16.
You did have IMRT, yeah. Okay.
And we've talked extensively about this gallium scan on this call, and if you go back through the old YouTube, I think maybe even if you look on the website, the last 4 or 5 sessions, but before that, we've discussed the gallium in a ranking done by Alan Edel, which I don't know. I mean, I have that. I'll try and put the link in the box unless somebody else has it handy. He considers the gallium to be the second most accurate available scan, or he did at the time. There's one contrast that he thinks is better, and that sort of segues me into another contrast, which is very similar. These are like the F18 contrast that are used for Axumin and other, but for some reason they start 18F, and the one that Edel thinks is the most accurate is called, it's an 18F, I think it's pyridium, PYR. And that's also available at UCSF, but you have to qualify for the trial, and it's a lot more difficult to qualify for the trial. Peter Carroll is the principal investigator. But there's another 18F compound, and I think it's different from what I can tell from the clinical trial. And that is being offered in the DC area by, I think it's the NIH. Just bear with me 1 second, and I'm gonna pull the trial up. Edel mentioned it earlier this week on a post that he put on Mike Scott's site. And I read it very quickly and not very carefully. And fortunately, my trusty board member, Len Sierra, who is sunning his Fanny in Sarasota, Florida, and sends his apologies, but his sisters are visiting with him tonight. He read it a lot more carefully than I did. And he noted at the end of this discussion that Edel said that all expenses are paid if you want to participate in this trial, which is pretty good. It is a NCI trial. It's a National Cancer Institute trial, which is part of the NIH. So I was kind of right. And I'm putting it for those who are on the online. I've just posted it in the chat window. And the criteria, if you have recurrent disease, is that your PSA is greater than 0.2. And it doesn't say a whole heck of a lot more. So you probably have to finish up calling the trial coordinator, whose number is there. It may be my confusion. This may be the same compound. It's called 18F-DCF-PYL. So I think it might be the same compound that that Peter Carroll is using, but I'm not 100% certain. I need to do a little bit more work on that. So they're looking to enroll. They're enrolling not just men who have recurrent disease, but they're also enrolling men with high risk, diagnosed with high risk disease up front, which is really pretty unusual. Localized disease that is high risk. So, for example, I would have been eligible to go to this study, and the idea is they try and see if you have any significant metastasis before you opt for treatment, because you don't want to go for treatment. I mean, you don't want to do surgery, or you may not want to do surgery, and then find that you have metastasized disease, although, as we know, there are a lot of people that like to debulk now. I'm sorry for this background noise. I got no idea what's going on outside of my house, but something's going on. There's some sort of equipment. I don't know what it is. Anyway, I've put it in the window. And Paul, it might be something that that might work for you. You can look at the trial. It doesn't say in the trial that they pay the expenses, but if you look for the reference on New Prostate Cancer Info link, Alan does say that specifically, that they pay for the trial.
Where is it? Where's the trial?
Where's the trial? The trial's in the Washington area, NCI, NIH.
Washington, D.C. or Washington, Seattle?
Washington, D.C. National Cancer Institute, National Institute of Health.
Well, now that you mention it, my oncologist, when I saw him about 2 weeks ago, he suggested this, this scan, but then he said that you're probably limited to only 3 of them. I don't know if that's because of radiation exposure or because of insurance cost limitations. So he decided to demur and he scheduled me for just a regular CT scan, which I'll have in about a month or 2.
Well, again, I don't. When you say he scheduled you, he mentioned the scan exactly did he mention?
I'm pretty sure it was the Gallium-68. It was a PET CT, and I'm pretty sure it was Gallium-68. He said it's available here in Boca, and I went on the internet, and apparently it's available a whole lot of places.
No, not the Gallium-68.
No?
No. What he may have been talking about was the Axumin scan with the what's the name of that contrast, Peter? I always forget.
Begins with an FL.
Yes.
Fluorocyclovine.
Thank you, Dennis. Fluorocyclovine. He was probably talking about the Axumin scan, which on a ranking is about third. So it would come in after the gallium. And that is available and should be covered by your insurance. It may not be. I heard Humana turned it down recently, but I think that was also for a man that didn't have Medicare, but I think it should be. If not, you can talk to Humana. And let me just say, if you're going to get scanned, that's what you want to get scanned with if you don't want to go for one of these more fancy ones. Peter, you want to address that?
Yeah, it's covered by insurance, for most insurance anyway. Yeah, it won't. It depends on what your PSA is. If your PSA is relatively high, like over 1 or so, it should give you pretty good results. If your PSA is low, like mine is because of treatment, you're not gonna get the best results from it.
Well, I'm undetectable, so I don't see. I'm not even sure why he suggested it then.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure why he would suggest it either. If you're undetectable, you have to have some number there above 0.2 or something.
Well,
yeah.
Do you have? I can't remember. I know you have lymphatic involvement. Do you have any known bone mets, Paul?
Oh, I have no idea because I've never done a scan that would reveal them. Before my prostatectomy, they did a regular bone scan, and I came out clear, which allowed them to do the prostatectomy. But since then, which is 4 years ago, I have no idea. I don't have any pain or anything like that, but I'm undetectable, so there's no reason to think I would have Mets yet. Or am I mistaken? You can be undetectable and still have Mets?
Yeah, I mean, you it depends. They could have been there. It's unlikely, but if they were there at one point, they could still be there. And it depends what was picked up before if everything was picked up and what the degree of sophistication was on the original bone scan. But it's not a bad idea. But I didn't realize that. That you were totally undetectable. I mean, it's probably not a bad idea just to get a baseline scan, but you probably don't need anything too fancy either. So I don't know.
Right. What are my choices again? Gallium-68. What are the other two?
Axumin, AXUMIN. You can look it up online, or a lot of information. Maybe somebody will put. Maybe somebody will put something in the chat window for you.
And what was the other one? Axumin
and the other one is 18F. Well, just go to the clinical trials link that I put in the chat box, and you'll see what that was.
Okay.
Yeah. Paul, if your PSA is undetectable, you won't be a candidate for these scans. You need to have a rising PSA, even if it's a very low number. And
right.
You're gathering. Do you have your PSA tested monthly or quarterly? Or
every 3 months, and I'm consistently undetectable for 2.5 years now since I started the. Well, 2 years and 3 months. Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about anything now. I just keep on trucking, and at some point, if you do notice any kind of detection in PSA, switch to a monthly PSA and start tracking it and graphing it. And if you notice that you get doubling time of under 3 months, then it's time to start looking, getting a scan and looking at something. But I doubt the high-tech scans will be appropriate, or you'll even qualify for them if your PSA is just running at an undetectable rate.
Right. Thank you.
And you know, the other discussion that you might want to have is whether, if you're interested, whether you're eligible for a drug holiday.
I'm reluctant to try that. I'm sort of surviving on with the Lupron, side effects. I'm having a lot of trouble with my weight, but I'd rather be conservative and just keep going with the Lupron.
Okay.
Is there some other reason why I'd want to go on a holiday?
No, I think it's basically quality of life issues. Wouldn't you say? We don't have Len on the call tonight, but I mean, those are the two guys I know that have really benefited from taking drug holidays, Peter and Len. Peter, would you say there are any other reasons?
No, I've often, once in a while, I wake up in the middle of the night asking myself if I made the right decision. But generally, I think I'm okay, and I'm ready to go back on it if I need to. I don't feel it. I don't feel I shot my chance. I think it's just the nature of the beast, and I chose to try intermittent therapy and see what happens. And maybe I'll try it again if I get good results.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's move along.
Peter, this is Jake.
Yeah.
Hang on a second, Rick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right above the link that Rick put in, I put in a link to a company that you mentioned that you cannot read your CD that they gave you.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. There's a company called Microdicom that has a free viewer that I was able to view my CT results on. So hopefully MRI, PET CT are all the same. Maybe George Southier can mention that, but it was DICOM is the extension normally, and the viewer is free. It's only for Windows, as far as I understand. There's no Mac version.
Okay. My computer is Windows.
Okay, well, check it out. The viewer is free, no charge, and see if it'll read your CD.
Okay.
That's for anybody that has scans or gets scans from their doctor.
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I saw that and I meant to mention it and I forgot. Funnily enough, I was trying to look at a CD of my hip earlier on today, and I need to download that too for other reasons. Okay, so and unless anyone else has any questions about scanning, let's we'll move on. Let's go to Brian in Chicago area. Bartlett.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm actually heading back from a visit to the Mayo in Minnesota.
Okay.
I had a follow-up visit after my I had for fresh people, I had the chemo last year. Went through 6 rounds of Taxotere after having an advanced diagnosis almost a year ago with a lot of bone mets to the spine and to the pelvic area. Had the Taxotere chemo and then had IMRT in November, December. Because after the chemo, there was still some residual, and they felt it would be a good idea if I tried to knock that out while it was low. Went back to Mayo today. Yesterday had some more scan. I had a scan, had the C11 again, and had an MRI as well. And that came out very well. The PSA is now down to less than 0.1.
Great.
Yes. The scan showed, something of a little bit concern in the left pelvic area, but it turns out that that is likely inflammation from the radiation. They actually, Dr. Klein, searched around for the radonc as we were sitting there waiting, and they got on the phone and talked about it and felt that they had radiated that area very well, and it was just picking up some inflammation with the PSA being so low. So good news is, I've made very good progress in the year, less than a year. I'm very happy with where things have progressed, and Dr. Kwan felt that I, just need to stay on the Lupron, for a while yet. At one point they were considering Zytiga for me, but since I'm, staying at a low level here now for 2-3 months, they don't see a reason for me to go on Zytiga yet until, something may change. So very happy with the visit.
That's great. Now, what about the disease that was originally seen when you got diagnosed? Has that all disappeared, or has it shrunk, or what's the comparison between then and now, Brian?
It's all disappeared. They're not seeing anything.
Wow.
Nothing on the scan. Nothing on the MRI. Didn't pick up anything either. They were very surprised because I had pretty quick response to the chemo. After 3 rounds, they already were seeing a big reduction. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've been very fortunate and very happy with the plan that they have me on. So
great, congrats.
Thank you.
It's really, really good. You must feel terrific. Did you go up alone, or with your wife, or your partner, or?
My wife's actually here with me in the car.
Okay. Well, I'm happy for both of you. And you're always welcome, wife, on our caregiver call if you ever would like to join us, by the way. So, thank you. It's always welcome. You can come on, you can complain about Brian, and we promise our lips are sealed. So,
okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. We meet first and third Tuesdays. One meeting's at 8 o'clock Eastern, and the others at 7 o'clock Eastern. I co-moderate it, but we have always at least 1 or 2 women as moderators, because I try to stay out of it as much as possible. But it's a nice group, so you're very, very welcome. But it's really good news. Anybody like to ask Brian any questions, or just dig around a little bit on what he told us? Wow, you shut them all up, Brian.
Hey, this is Dennis. I got a question. Yeah. I'm not sure I heard how many Mets you had initially.
I had originally when I had my bone scan about a year ago. They saw 4 or 5. But when I had the C11, at that time my PSA was 20 something, and I had I think close to 30 Mets.
Wow.
All throughout my spine, different places, and in my pelvic area. So the theory, was my PSA grew very fast, and originally when I went to get it checked out, I was at a 4. So it grew very fast, and then we tackled it pretty fast, I think, as well. So I'm hoping that obviously stay where they're at now, and at least for a while, and I don't have to do anything else. And
yeah, I think this is an excellent example of how different we are as individuals relative to how we respond to the types of treatment that we're getting. It's things that work so wonderfully well for one person with essentially the same kind of diagnosis, and then another person tries it and doesn't quite get the same results.
Well, yeah, I was, when I found out a year ago, obviously I went into, at 56, was considered, fairly young for this, and went into left my job, and I didn't know where I was headed. And here, less than a year later, I'm in a feels like a different place. I always got to be concerned, obviously, but feels like I'm in a different place. And I think a lot of that has to do with, me leaving my job and getting rid of all the stress that was giving me, which I think partially attributed to this to begin with. Not eating right, and I'm eating a lot better. A lot of that thanks goes to my wife. Also exercising. I didn't want to exercise at all, and so I started, exercising a bit, and gradually increased it. And, and you change your attitude. You have to change your attitude too towards it. So it takes a while. It takes a while to get through it. It's difficult.
So,
well, congratulations. You're certainly doing the right thing.
That's such a great testament. And Shref, I hope you're listening to this, because it should be encouragement for somebody like yourself, where, when you first get diagnosed, everything looks so gloomy, and yet there are some men who do well. It's not everybody, but there are men that do well, and the disease can be managed even when you get diagnosed with in a metastasized state. Correct, Brian?
Yep.
Yes, I'm listening. Thanks, Brian.
I'm really glad I researched things and took the steps I needed to, went to a good source, like Mayo, and, Shref going to Cleveland Clinic, and taking the time to look into everything and try to find the best care possible, because and reading up and getting involved in support groups has helped as well. So.
Okay, well, it's really good news. And anybody else want to say anything to Brian before we move on? Okay. All right, well, great job, Brian. Just whatever you're doing, don't change it. Okay? Keep that.
Okay.
Keep that exercise, keep that good diet. I don't know about not working. That's between you and the wife. You'll have to figure out. She may send you out, to stack more wood. I don't know. But anyway, keep going and keep coming back to us, because we love to hear this.
I'm glad you're with Dr. Kwan. He's a very impressive guy. I mean, it amazes me that there are doctors of his caliber all over that just dedicate their lives to helping us out, to finding a way through this. He's an outstanding one. I've heard him speak at a conference several times, and I've always been impressed by his humility, he's a genius in many ways.
Yeah, I am very impressed with the Mayo just in general. I think, just like you mentioned about UCSF, and the people are so caring and compassionate, and a lot of history there, and he is he'll take the time with you, and he even though he's got a lot of patience, and I think he's tackling things the right way and trying to help as many people as he can.
Okay. A good testimony for Mayo and for Jean Kwan. All right, Dennis, you have the floor.
I almost hate to bring this next topic up here after such a positive report out here and what's going on, but we had a new experience. I guess I should call it this past weekend. My wife and I, we had joined this. It's called the Funeral Consumers Alliance, and there's a national and there's a state group. Mm-hmm. And here it's Arizona Funeral Consumers Alliance. And what they do, it's not a prepaid funeral arrangement or anything like that, but it's a membership that you have. It's like $15 a year. But what this gets you is a really basic protection for your final arrangements, whether it's going to be a burial or cremation or what have you. But they have in almost every state, I think. I'm looking at their paper here. I don't see Hawaii on here, but they do have just about every state. And one of the things that they do, they have sort of like a reciprocity agreement that if you were traveling and you passed away in another state, you could get their pricing, the bare bones pricing for whatever arrangement you want in that state. Particularly, this is probably would apply for a cremation, which is what our plans are. And then it's easy to just ship those ashes back home or wherever they're going, as opposed to if you pass away in another state and you're looking at a funeral in your state of residency or something. It can get pretty complicated with the body transport and that type of thing. But the main thing here is education. They're very educational about these final arrangements. They'll talk about, we had a speaker, and she was a Dr. Karen Smith. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of her, but she's a medical ethicist at the Henry Ford Medical Center. And she's a member and she's on the board. But she talked about your rights to your final wishes type of thing, and the type of whatever kind of treatment you want to continue to, keep you alive and going or whatever. And it's a very individual thing of what you want. But then the other thing is this bare bones pricing. And just for an example, for right now, we have a arrangement here in Arizona in Tucson with it's called the Adair Funeral Home, and you can get a direct cremation through this arrangement here, and it's not a prepaid thing, and it obviously it can go up because it's not prepaid, but for $395, a basic cremation.
Wow.
Where if you go to a lot of funeral homes, it's one of those areas. Funeral homes are not necessarily the most reputable businesses around. They really tend to take advantage of family members and say, oh, you wouldn't want to, just put them in this or that or whatever. And they try to sell you all these extras, and before you know it, you're out of there for, $5,000, $10,000. And so this is really a way of preventing that. But the website to find out whether or not you've got one in your state, it just says here, www.funeral.org.
It's actually, Dennis, I just posted it in the web in the chat box. It's actually funerals.org, plural.
Funeral.org. Yeah, FUNERAL.org.
FUNERALS.org.
Now, my paper says FUNERAL.org.
Well, I'm on it right now. Funeral Consumers Alliance.
Okay.
And
yeah.
And I'm on there right now, and it's funerals.org is the URL for it. And I thank you for that, because we don't often talk about this. This is really this is really a subject where, Jake, you have to bring this to the attention of Jet, because John Teisberg often likes to bring conversations around to this subject, which he sort of gleefully relishes in. Those of you who don't know Jet, he has a small business where he makes Viking funeral ships, where you can, and this is the truth. He builds you a ship, and you can put your ashes in the ship, and then push it off, and it goes off into the lake or the sea or wherever you send it, and it burns up and goes to the bottom of where it sinks right there and then. So you know, I've joked with him before that he often comes around to this topic, but the fact is we don't talk about it much on this call, and it is an important topic, and this is really a very helpful website for those people that have at some point to think of their arrangements, because it maximizes the assets and the resources that they leave, and for $15 a year, it's probably a good investment. So so thank you, Dennis. Would anybody like to ask Dennis any questions about it? Okay. And tomorrow, Dennis, you're getting your Lupron top up.
Yep, get my my 3-month Lupron injection.
Okay.
And
Tell them about the Zytiga monthly.
oh, I got my wife here looking over my shoulder. She's they had stretched my blood work, doctor visits for my Zytiga out to, oh, what was it, about every other month or so.
Right.
And I was reading some stuff about hepatotoxicity for Zytiga, and after the first 3 months, they recommend monthly thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to see what my doc thinks about getting me more on the monthly. I don't mind getting a little blood draw.
Right.
Once a month.
Right.
Because it's already, I think I mentioned this on the last call, my ALT and the AST, the liver enzymes were rising up, and it was slightly above the upper limit. But what this is saying, that until the AST or the ALT rise above 5 times the upper limit, or the bilirubin rises 3 times the upper limit, then that's the point where they would interrupt your Zytiga treatment.
Okay, and your last PSA was down to 0.2, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
And we'll talk very soon. What time's your appointment?
1:30.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. We'll chat with you very soon.
Okay.
And stay warm tonight. Okay. If you get the snow before I do, call me.
Okay. It's coming our way.
Coming your way.
What's your elevation? What's your elevation down there?
3,000.
3?
Yeah, a little over 3.
You're a little higher than Tucson. You may not get. I think they're saying 4,000.
Okay.
Down to 4,000 feet.
Oh, okay. Okay, they'll get it in Nogales. Okay. So let's move on to Dr. George. Dr. George. Hello.
Hey, Rick. How you doing? I'm doing okay. Just trying to keep up with the diet and exercise, and As I said, I had an issue with depression last time. That seems to still be an issue, but seems to be tough in the winter. So.
What are you doing for the depression, George?
I'm on a couple of medications, Wellbutrin, and I just started on Lexapro about a month ago.
Okay.
So.
And do you notice any measurable difference when you do aerobic exercise?
Oh yeah, I definitely feel better. The problem is getting from zero, getting out of bed, and getting to the point of doing it.
Yeah.
Once you're doing it, you're fine.
Right. I know that, man.
It's that motivation factor.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Who? We'll come back to you, but anybody want to talk to George about how they've overcome that motivation factor? Because I think most of us on the call recognize that feeling, where you just, I go back to 2001 when I came back. I'd been working in Romania for 4 years, and I pretty much had a breakdown. And before I started medication, I was literally crawling around the floor, and I could be in the house for 6 or 7 hours. And eventually, when I could get myself out to run, and I would go for a run, maybe 5 miles, I'd come back, I'd feel so much better. But I couldn't get myself to go out and exercise. Anybody have any suggestions or thoughts on that?
Well, what did you do? How did you get over it?
Resilience. I just knew that I would feel better. I could imagine the feeling, and I just had to wait until I felt like I had enough strength to get up, put my shoes on, and get myself out the door. And I knew once I was out the door and on the street, I could start moving my legs. But the problem was getting out the door.
Yeah, well, I'm going back to the physical therapy, which is that's helped me tremendously because it does force me to go for an appointment, and I do that twice a week. And I have a lot of problems with my flexibility because of my 2 back surgeries. I got a fused back from T11 to sacrum, so
wow,
my flexibility is not that great. I had a lot of spinal mets and cord compression, so I do have a lot of orthopedic problems from this cancer. And I'm doing great with the cancer. I just had a prostate biopsy about a month ago or 2 months ago, and it was negative, which they were all surprised because right now I have a normal appearing prostate. Because they were thinking about taking it out, but there's no reason to at this point.
Right.
Because I went through all the treatment. I went through 2 years of Firmagon and Xtandi and Metformin and Avodart and Estradiol, and I pretty much got hit with everything. And then the 2 surgeries, and my PSA dropped. A lot of the lesions cleared up in my bone. So, it just left me with this mental fog and fatigue, which, persists today. And been really difficult getting back to where I consider normal is. But, I guess there's not a normal, and I understand that. It was really great to hear, was it Brian?
Yeah, Brian.
That he had that many Mets, and his PSA and the way he is now. It's really great to know that other people are experiencing that, because You know, with all the treatments we have, I think you're going to see more of that.
Yeah,
But
you're looking. I mean, I must say, because I can see Dr. George on the go-to meeting. Those of you who are on the phone, but you look skinny and you look well. You look quite a bit better than you know, and more fit and trim than I've seen you in a while. So you're doing something right there, Doc. I don't know what it is.
you know, I'm on a holiday. I haven't had Firmagon, and I can notice it in my muscle strength. You know, I lost a lot of muscle mass when I was on the chemo and the Firmagon, and I'd like to stay on it, but you know, I don't know how long that's going to last. And if I have to go back on it, then I'll go back on it. But
where's your testosterone and where's your PSA at when was the last measurement?
well, when I did the biopsy, my PSA went up a little bit. It went up to 0.12.
Right.
It had been undetectable for quite a while. You know, 0.01 to 0.03 or very low, and then I had the biopsy and it went up a little bit, and they thought, well, that's probably because of the biopsy. And then I had a repeat one which was lower, and now it's a little higher, so it's hovering around 0.1 now, and I got to call into the oncologist to see what you know, what they want me to do. I'm always fearful about doing this holiday, but the way I was told, it's kind of like being on an antibiotic for a long time. The resistant cells, you know, the ones that resist the hormone treatments, they get stronger, and then they don't the ADT doesn't work as well. So I think the intermittent therapy is the way to go, but you got to be very careful too, because you know, keep a good eye on it. Because the minute it starts going up, you know, then there's a problem. You're going to get back on the hormone therapy. So, but
so that 0.1 was this month. Is that from February? This
was last week.
Okay, and what about your testosterone? What's that come back to?
It was up to 400. Now it's about 150. It came down actually. But I'm on a lot of pain medicine too, which also lowers it. So it's
you know, that could also explain some of, you know, an increase in the depression.
Yeah. Yeah, so if I can get off some of this pain medication, because I'm on quite a high dose.
Right.
I've been on a high dose since this whole thing started, and
right. Peter, you know, your thoughts for Dr. George, especially on this holiday issue and whatever else is on your mind.
What's on my mind? Well, in terms of exercise, if you have a partner, even if you walk every day with a friend or something like that, that makes a difference, because you've got a certain commitment that you've got to keep up. I have somebody I paddle with several times a week, and that's gets me out in the water, it gets me in a different environment and so forth. But also I have a partner who I don't want to use the word nag because it has connotations, but we don't live together. We have separate houses, but not a day goes by when she doesn't ask me if I've been to the gym, and I can't lie to her. It forces me to take some action, forces me to not make excuses. I mean, sometimes sometimes if I remember when I was in heavy fatigue mode, there were times when I couldn't go, but I tried to make myself go. And I felt better once I did. Going to the gym, and that helped as well because it gave me the incentive of the more I went, the cheaper it was. So whatever little incentives you can give yourself are useful because it's very easy to talk yourself out of it.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on that. And I think I already mentioned my thoughts on the drug holiday. I'm ready to pack it in and go back on ADT, and I'll know for sure. I kind of expect it at this point. And I've enjoyed this holiday right now. I've had it for about 14 months, and it's been great. It's great to know that your testosterone can come back, that you can feel energetic and have some life and some zest and so forth. But if I need to go back on ADT, I'm ready. That's the game is survival and living, and I wouldn't mind doing drug holidays every year and a half or so if it's possible.
Well, so anyone else have any thoughts on how to handle this depression, how to motivate yourself to exercise? Quite a lot tonight. You're making me work hard.
Yeah, let me chime in again here.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you.
On the exercise thing, I think if you can find something like a sport that you can enjoy, join a group or something that, I mean, ping pong. You could probably get a workout with, without too much, or what's in pickleball is the new thing that's going on now. It's like a miniaturized version of tennis and table tennis, I guess. But you play it on a lot smaller court. You play it with, another person, doubles type of thing. So it's not as I would say dangerous as trying to play tennis, or if you're not physically, equipped to do that. But any kind of a sport, I think, that you can get a little bit of exercise out of, and you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to enjoy the companionship and the camaraderie that you get with the other folks in the group, and you find yourself just kind of looking forward to it, just from a social aspect almost, and you're not really thinking so much about the exercise. And then think about supplementing that where you can.
Yeah. I was told to get in the water since my back is not in the best shape, so I'm going to try to do that. And once the weather gets nice, I like going bike riding. So as soon as this weather clears, I'll get on my bike and get outside.
There you go.
Yeah.
So let's
see if you can find somebody else that wants to ride a bike along with you.
Yeah, or maybe I'll move to Arizona, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's making it sound so pretty in the winter.
Well, I do want to say this concept of an exercise buddy is huge, and whoever it was, Peter, I think, that suggested it, it's so important. I mean, many years ago, I started a site called metafit.org, and the idea of that was to encourage exercise for people with serious and chronic illness. And we set up a program at UCSF, and it worked. But one key aspect of that program that they would not include was that I wanted to have a buddy database, so that we could, anybody that came in, we could set them up with an exercise buddy. And, George, if you can even go on your local Craigslist and just say, look, I'm looking for someone to ride with. And, the worst can happen is they're jerks. You go out with them one time, you never see them again. You don't call them back. But, if you strike up a relationship with them, and like Peter says, he's got his buddy that he goes paddling with in Hawaii. And I mean, I know that I used to go to the rowing club every day, and it was important. And I also knew that when I exercised, I was going to feel much better. So it was sort of a double motivation. One thing I am thinking is, if you've got a bike at home, go down to the bike shop and get yourself some rollers, and you can put your bike into the rollers, and you can put it in front of the TV or whatever you want, or put a movie on and pedal whilst you're watching the movie. You're going to get some exercise that way, and you don't have to step out the door. And if your bike, and you leave the bike in the roller, so obviously your wife's not going to be too happy if you do it in the living room, but if you can put the bike somewhere where there's a TV and in your office or wherever it is, then you can get on the bike and just start pedaling. And it's cheaper than getting an exercise bike. I mean, or look on Craigslist for an old exercise bike, and start using that. I mean, you may be able to find an old recumbent machine, so that'll support your back, and you don't have to leave the house. I mean, there are ways to do this at home.
I bought a recumbent bike, and I put it in my living room so I can watch TV while I do it. And it was only $234 from Walmart, and it's just a wonderful machine. Got resistance. It's very well made. And that's pretty cheap. You think of these exercise machines as being $1,000 to $2,000, and a lot of them are out there, the Peloton and whatnot. But if you look at Walmart, they've got some some pretty nice machines for not very much money. And it makes exercising so much easier, especially if you've got a problem with either living in a very hot area or the middle of the winter kind of thing. And and it's great to be able to just hop on that thing and get 20 minutes of exercise while you're watching your favorite TV show. So
Great. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, now we just got to act on it. Now we got to be sending you emails. All
right.
Saying, Dr. George, did you get that exercise bike? All right.
I'll do something. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Let's move on to Eric, who's been very patient, hanging in there. Eric, tell us how you're doing.
I got to move to the other room.
Okay.
Now I'm going to talk because there's noise in here.
Okay.
All right. So my last couple of PSAs have been going up. So I have an appointment. Actually, it's a week from today with Dr. Agarwal, and I had a CT scan and a bone scan, which I sent to them, but now they tell me it takes them 2 weeks to get anything. So now I'll have to go get another copy and bring it to them. But Dr. Agarwal right away said he wanted to set up an appointment and talk to me. So that hasn't happened yet. I've still been getting the treatments. So I had one last Thursday, and I got pretty sick over the weekend. Doing better now, but the treatments I'm having are carboplatin and cabazitaxel, and I've been maintaining my weight okay, so I'm not having that problem that I had before. And I still have some hair, although it's getting pretty thin. Every time I brush it, half of it comes out in the hairbrush. So I don't know, what Dr. Agarwal is going to recommend, but we'll have a talk, see what's going on. Also, my oncologist here in Berkeley has scheduled an appointment with me as well. So we'll get several opinions and see how they compare. Obviously, the one from Dr. Agarwal is more important, but Dr. Dolezal was in charge of the trials in Berkeley
Right.
So I don't know who is now. But I've never met this oncologist before, so.
Is this Surya Devara?
Right.
Right.
Uma Suridevara. Yep.
Okay. Oh, okay. You get a degree if you can pronounce the name.
Right.
Tell us about the PSA. The last it was 14.8. What's it done since then?
No, it's up to 23, I think.
Okay. Okay.
I can look it up pretty quick here. Yeah. I think just the general trend of it going up is the most
concerning. So,
yeah.
Eric, I want to relay to you a conversation
It's
that
25.9 now.
Okay.
Okay, what did you want to relay?
I want to relate to you a conversation I had with Rob Baniscus, who some of you may know is our secretary treasurer. He rarely comes on the calls, but he does amazing work for Answer Cancer Foundation, and he looks phenomenal. But his disease is pretty rampant, and it's soft tissue disease. And so he decided to go on carboplatin, and he's waiting to see how he responds. But I talked with him about mixing the carboplatin with the cabazitaxel, because he had not done too well on the docetaxel. And he spoke to his doc, who's a guy called Stuart Bloom he's a GU med-onc in Minneapolis. And what they said was, and it might be worth discussing, is that you really don't give the carboplatin a good chance to work if you mix it with another chemo, because that chemotherapy, if you have two, then you have to reduce the amount of carboplatin, and so there's reason just to do the carboplatin alone and not to do it mixed. And if it were me, that's a discussion I would want to be having with Agarwal. Who do you see first, by the way, Agarwal or the new doctor?
The new one, unfortunately. I'd see her on Friday.
Well, that's okay. I think you're better off that way. I think you're better off seeing her first, and she knows you. She knows you're working with Agarwal, right?
I presume.
Well, you'll make sure she does.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. But have a discussion with her too about that. About, do you think there might be any difference if I just went to carboplatin? You're getting it every 3 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
But I started out with the carboplatin every week for a month before I started the Jeftana.
And I'm just wondering, when did you start the Jeftana with it?
In November.
So you started the Jeftana in November.
Yes.
And was your PSA going up on the carboplatin alone?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then so it was initially the introduction of the cabazitaxel that brought it down to 14.8.
Right. Now it took about 2 months.
The other area for discussion that comes to me right now is around radionuclides, and whether there's one of these radionuclides that they're doing. Dr. Steve is is doing lutetium down in Southern California. It's expensive, but it seems like he's getting some sort of a result for it. It's really too early to tell, but we know it's been effective in other places. Anybody else?
Is that like Xofigo or is that something else?
So it's like Xofigo, but it's not Xofigo because it's sensitized to your PSMA, your prostate-specific membrane antigen. So instead of it going to the Xofigo is attracted to calcium, so it affects your whole body. It's a lot more systemic. Whereas the lutetium 177 that we've talked about it on this call many times is only attracted to cells that exhibit prostate-specific membrane antigen, which are mostly, surprise, prostate cells, but not only, because there are some cells, I think, in your esophagus and a couple of other places that do make this prostate-specific membrane antigen. And Peter, do you know where the other cells are since you've been studying this recently?
No, sorry, I'm not up to speed on this one.
Okay, so I know that some of them are around your esophagus because one of the side effects of the lutetium is that you get pretty dry. But you know, it is directed basically to your to the prostate lesions. By the way, I talked to Professor Bill earlier today, and he was down at Dana-Farber yesterday, and he's decided that he's going to start Xofigo. Just as an aside, talking about the radionuclides. But I mean, I'm just wondering whether that's a conversation that you could have with probably with Agarwal more than you know. I unless Devara, we have to come up with another name for her. Umi, did you say? Was it Umi?
Uma. Her first name is Uma.
Okay, I'm writing Uma in here because it's just too much.
Dr. Uma.
Dr. Uma. So you know, I don't know how much she'll know about some of these trials that are going on, but there are a couple of trials. There is definitely lutetium 177, and then there's another one. Trying to remember what it's called. I'll look it up. But there is another radio. Paul Frieda, what would they call it? The agent, like lutetium or gallium. Is there a generic name for that?
I don't know.
Okay.
If I think of it, I'll let you know.
You're my resident physicist. You're my man. You're my go-to man with the physics.
So Rick, you know, I was on Xofigo, but for a very short time.
Yeah.
My PSA just started skyrocketing, and then that's when they switched me to carboplatin.
Yeah, so. But again, I think you had didn't you have some other issues around the Xofigo too? It started skyrocketing, and didn't you have some other side effects?
No, I wasn't having any side effects.
No?
No.
I mean, you know, the Xofigo just goes to the bone. So it will have an impact, but it's not going to have the same sort of impact as something that's drawn to the lesions, to the prostate cancer lesions. Anybody else have any thoughts or anything they'd like to say to Eric? Suggestions, ideas?
Eric, when you said you started Xofigo, but then went off of it, it's only what, three treatments, isn't it? The whole process?
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I just had a couple, but
Huh.
I don't know that it was is it, Rick? Is it just a short 3 treatments is all they do?
It's I think it's 6.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 6 treatments, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. It is
5 or 6. I think they did the trial with either they did the trial with 5, but now they use 6, or they did the trial with 6 and now they use 5. I can't remember, but it's one.
Okay.
Of,
It is 6, Rick.
it's 6.
6.
Yeah,
Even though Steve Bornstein decided he wanted to go with only 3, if you remember.
that's right. Yeah, he wanted to split it. Quite right. Very good. Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, it's it's a 6 treatment. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, and I wonder, I wonder whether this ES414 might be any good for you. The trial that, yeah, I just don't know with your disease, but this is the trial that Larry Fong is running at UCSF. It's also being run in other places. Dr. Chatter, Bill's doc at Roswell Park, is running it. And the idea is that they put this ES414 compound into your system, and the compound goes to the T cells, certain T cells, and to the cancer cells. Again, I think it's attracted by PSMA, and then it acts as a magnet, and it pulls the T cells to the prostate lesions. And the trial's been offered to a couple of people that I know. One person, David Sibley, turned it down, but now I think he's going to do it. It does require you going back and forth a couple of times a week to Mission Bay. But you know, if you can pick the right time and you can drive yourself, or you can go in on the on BART, that's not so bad. But again, make a note to talk about ES414.
Yeah, wrote that down.
Okay, and you can look up the trial, Eric. I think.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. All right, you have it. So yeah, I know I've got it bookmarked somewhere. But I mean this is the sort of stuff that's, you know, it's pretty esoteric, but it's only going to be available at some of the, you know, these types of treatments are going to be available only at the best hospitals. And that might be something for you. And I know he's recruiting right now for that.
It says it started 3 years ago.
I don't know how. I mean, I've just heard about it recently, so they may have started the trial, but I'm wondering when they opened it up for recruiting. But
Right.
I'll look. Are you looking at the clinicaltrials.gov site, or are you looking at the UCSF site?
Clinical trials.
Okay. Okay. But you know, I don't know what else is there in the immunotherapy context, but I know that ES414 is the one they've been pushing. But I think here's what happened. Okay, I think I do know. They did start the trial a few years ago, but they gave the ES414 in not on a continuous basis, and it didn't work. So they decided that they had to administer it on a continuous basis. So they now give you a belt and a pump, and so it's now administered 24/7. And this is the new version of the trial. So my guess is that this new version is what just got opened up. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're looking. I see that. What the hell is he talking about? Expression on your face. So I'm not.
No, I was actually looking at the information on the trial.
Okay.
So that's what I was trying to figure out.
Okay.
By the way, totally
Yeah.
off subject, sort of. Have you seen the way they currently administer Neulasta with the
Yeah.
little turtle they put on you?
Yeah. Yeah. They put like a little pump on your arm
Oh yeah, or on your stomach.
or your stomach. Yeah. I have seen it.
Yeah, I did the first one on my stomach, and then I did the others on my arm. The stomach was annoying and, you know, got in the way of tightening your belt. But the one on the arm, I just, you know, I'd forget I even had it on. So.
Well, you know, you might. When's your date with the Agarwal?
Week from today.
Okay. So, you know, it's not that far, but you might send him a note and just say you want to talk to him about ES414, only because he might be able to send you up or send you over to see Larry at the same time.
Okay. What about the lutetium?
Well, I talked to him. I mean, I talked to him about radionuclides in general. I'll see if I can remember what the other, I was just looking for it before, but there's definitely one other compound that came to my attention last week. And I just can't, I know I bookmarked it, but I just got to find the bookmark. And I'll send it to you, whatever it was. But it's a compound that's being tried. I don't know if it's at UCSF. It's being tried at Memorial Sloan Kettering. It's sort of coming back to me in dribs and drabs. So I think it's being used at Memorial Sloan Kettering. I just want to see if I've got it under my clinical trials site. But anyway, we're coming on the witching hour, and I have one other thing that I would like to mention to you, which is good news for you guys, which is that, oh, here you go, iodine 131. I've got a trial. Hold on a minute. Bear with us, guys. Just hang in 1 second, and I just want to put this in the chat window for Eric.
I missed the last minute or so of your talking. My system went away and then came back.
Okay. I remember it's iodine 131 is this other radionuclide they're using, and that's in trial at Memorial Sloan Kettering. So might be just worth looking at it. And, so what I was saying was, the good news is that Ellie Van Allen wrote back to me this morning and said he'd be more than happy to come on our call. For those of you who don't know, Ellie Van Allen is a GU Med-Onc at Dana-Farber, and he's the principal investigator for the metastatic prostate cancer project. There was a call that on Cure Talks that Mike Scott hosted last week that's worth listening to. I told him that we already had 7 guys that I knew who regularly attend, and that's now up to 8. And so he's more than happy to come on the call. We'll advertise it widely, and I'll set him up so that he's ready to talk about other topics once he's done pitching the metastatic prostate cancer project, because I know some of you have already signed up, but those of you who haven't, it might be a good idea to think about it and maybe sign up, and I'll send that out ahead of time so you guys can all prep yourself ahead of time. I think it's pretty easy to provide the samples. Is there anyone on the call who's already provided a sample?
This is
Yeah, I have, Rick. I have. The first thing they did was they sent you a welcome letter asking you for information on your doctor and your personal information. Then they send you a tube for a sputum sample, and you mail that in. And then about
Oh yeah, I did that also. I forgot about that.
yeah, with the Broad Institute. And then about a month later, they send you a tube for your doctor to draw a tube of blood. Yeah, the only thing about this is the information is put into a database that's useful to will be eventually useful, but they don't, they do not send you personalized results like Foundation Medicine might, or anybody else. It's all kind of anonymous,
Right.
just so people don't get the wrong idea.
Right. And yeah, Jake, I think you listened to him on Cure Talk, and he said, well, yeah, but if we found something, we would make sure that people knew who were affected by it. And I sent a question in as to how they plan to do that, but it didn't get read out. So we'll ask him that. But so for example, if you have some strange mutation and somebody who's sharing all of this knowledge in some hospital somewhere in the country comes up with a great trial for that mutation, according to Van Allen, they're going to get that information back to you, but I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do that. So that's something that we can drill down on when he talks to us. But by and large, this is a sort of eleemosynary philanthropic effort on your part to participate, because it's creating a database from which some really good research should hopefully emerge.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And Shref, please come back. And so we can boost you and give you more ideas and get you to the same place Brian's at. And the next call will be Monday. Right? Am I right? Yeah, Monday the 5th. March the 5th will be the next call, and I'll talk to you all then.
That's at 8 o'clock, and I believe this weekend is daylight savings time, isn't it? Doesn't it?
No, I think it's the following weekend. I think it's on the 11th.
Wait a minute! Don't listen to Kafka. They don't change the clocks where he lives.
I know, but it affects me. I will be an hour late for the call.
Oh, okay.
Well, word to the wise, double check on that when they do that, because then it'll affect when the call is. But it's 8 o'clock Eastern time.
I think Rob mentioned that the daylight savings time would begin on the 11th when we were talking to him a few weeks ago.
Yes,
I believe.
Okay, Rob, I trust. Let me know if you have any problems with that software, Peter. Hopefully it'll work for you.
Okay. All right. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
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 Good night.